Blog Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Lectures of Fallen Wisdom. And this one is entitled The Mistakes of the Past, and yes, Time Travel. Now we have to understand that the past is always there in our minds. And a lot of people treat the past, probably most people, treat the past as a static situation, that it is something that can never be changed. And, I mean, that's a logical thing to think. I mean, obviously, it's already happened. How can you go back and change it? And, you know, as far as we know, there is no time travel. But what astrophysicists have understood is that there are possible universes. So there are also possible pasts that could have been better than the ones that you've experienced or that you seem to remember. But and what we do into the future will affect what past exists in our minds. And what's interesting is that, yes, I think I've talked about on this podcast how if you live in a way that takes in a lot of oxygen, that puts out a lot of positive energy, that basically enters situations and always tries to make them better, whether to either clean up, to keep to beautify where one is. That includes, just getting down and cleaning. And and let me contrapose that to the desire to be entertained constantly. That is something that has taken us away from the inherent desire to create positivity. What we are doing is sort of indulging our curiosity, indulging our attention on an entertainment thing. And now there's nothing wrong with enjoying some entertainment to contrast with all the things you're doing as a little break, but people have sort of taken it to the level of they don't even go to beautifying. They don't even go to this idea of creating positivity as a means of expression anymore. They're just completely entertainment seeking. So you have to watch out for that. Essentially, your first entertainment needs to be creating positivity in your environment. So, I mean, the first thing is where you live. That should be always kept extremely clean. You do that as a first step toward. It's a first step toward the beautifying of your environment. It's a first step toward making you more apt to be able to do that. I'm sure you've noticed that when you leave your messy apartment, you're a little more irritable than when you leave your very well organized, clean one, and or your house. I mean, all these things are. It's hard to calculate the effect that it has on the mind to have a messy space from which you live. So that's a very principal concern for mental clarity. So, but let's talk about the past. The past essentially it changes according to how well you're mastering, how much positivity you're putting into the future as you're living, and how much you are creating in your own mind an inner calm that allows you to carry out that positivity. If you feel like you're being pulled from pillar to post by obligations, that can often that can very often make it difficult for you to want to do anything else but pursue entertainment and try to deaden your mind a little bit, because you just feel like you just need some kind of downtime. And you will always feel that way if you're not re-energizing yourself with this drive, by satisfying the drive to create positivity in your environment. And as long as you're indulging yourself in entertainment, you are taking away from that drive, and you're failing to satisfy it. And sometimes that drive can almost die in you if you starve it. And a lot of people have completely starved that urge, and that urge has died in them. And for those of you who might be listening to this who feel like that urge has died within you to create positivity in your environment, I suggest you just start doing it, and you'll develop another hunger for it. It is an addictive behavior. It's much like a drug. It's also like generosity, for example, is very important. If you want the past to change for the better, then you will need to be extremely generous into the future. So these painful experiences, were things that we wish we had done in the past, regrets, all of these things apply to a past that is on a certain parallel universe. And we rise among the parallel universes as we rise either lower to the hell realm parallel universes, where the memories are even much worse than the ones we have now, or we rise higher to a higher parallel universe where things are easier, people are nicer, the world is in a better place, and the past is different. So you have to understand that you're not going to experience the change of your past. The change of your past will occur, but you will not remember the old past because your mind is not equipped to take in several parallel universes. It can only stay on one. It is built for one, and that's a good thing. You might look at some of these more unhinged people, the people that have been diagnosed with schizophrenia. I think there's an argument to be made that these people are tapping into other parallel universes, and our dreams might very well be the linking up of many different parallel universes and experiencing them. You can often feel very familiar and very what otherwise would be very different scenarios in your dream, yet there's people in them and there are situations that seem familiar. So there might be some argument that to be made that the dreams are essentially you experiencing the different parallel universes, and some of them where you actually die in. I'm sure you've had those dreams, and there are parallel universes where you die, and we've talked about that in this podcast. But, of course, you always live on in at least one or at least a million probably because there are infinite number. But they go up and down in quality according to how you act today. And so that's why it's important to understand that you can sit around and you can get upset about what happened in the past and you can feel that you really screwed up or something. But you have to understand that in the new past, in the past that you ascend to, maybe you didn't screw up. Maybe everything was fine. Maybe you did exactly the right thing, and sooner or later you remember that you did. And in many ways, too, the way in which you improve your, and make no mistake, you improve your present and your future by creating positivity at every moment that you can. And you know, there's many things that are entailed in that, and I'll probably get into that into the next show. But I think it's pretty obvious. It's keeping things clean, helping people keep their life clean and organized, helping your job work as efficiently as possible, being conscientious, being generous, being considerate as much as you possibly can, and certainly just keeping a good positive attitude and not focusing on the past, which might very well be not even in existence a moment from now. And as I said, a moment from now your past may change and you won't remember all that stuff that you can't seem to forget right now. And it's just a simple matter of understanding that the past does not exist. If the past is malleable, it only happened in one parallel universe. And often in some of the dark periods of our life, we enter very dark parallel universes, and they give us pasts that are very dark. And the only power of these dark pasts are it's their ability to affect us into the present, and their ability to condition us and relegate us permanently to a one level of a parallel universe, where this consciousness will stay and be imprisoned and die, while higher consciousnesses, ones that have achieved a higher level of vibration, a higher level of goodness, they will move on into the higher realms. So don't get left behind by your own soul. Your soul, of course, exists on every level of every parallel universe, even into the depths of hell. And there's many complexities that explain that, but we've relegated ourselves to climb the ladder from the hell realm into the heaven realm, and as a human being with a human body. And we are that is our purpose, and the only way to ascend is to create positivity. So just remember that next time you're going to try to entertain yourself. Of course, while you're creating positivity, you can, certainly put on some good music or listen to a podcast or do something, that can entertain you while you create positivity. But when you are just indulging in entertainment, and really you should just give all your attention to that, when you're just watching a movie or something like that's you're not actually you're taking your foot off the accelerator of going up the ascension path. Now you can certainly be affected by movies that accelerate your, they intellectually stimulate you to move on and reach higher heights, and that's certainly a possibility. But in terms of creating positivity, you must you must understand that the only way to affect your past and to affect your future is to try to be as conscientious as possible in creating that positivity wherever you stand. You should just be sort of like a sun that casts a beam of positivity everywhere. And then you will understand that, and every once in a while you'll catch a glimpse of your memory changing, and the best way to do that is usually in the dreams. So often what will happen was something that you were convinced did happen, you will soon remember it only as a dream, and it will be something that you probably just dreamed. And that is kind of our tenuous connection with parallel worlds that we both leave and sometimes come back to. So you have to understand that ascension is how it's achieved, and I think I've outlined it. And then you have to understand, too, that the past is malleable. And this is where time travel comes in, because you can, in many ways, go back to, through deep meditation. But if you sit and you breathe with eyes closed and nothing in particular, let your mind just float, let its thoughts just float in and out, and you observe them without judging, and you do that for you'd have to go at least longer than 15 minutes. After the 15th minute, you will begin to time travel, and you will be able to go actually into the past and change what you wanted to have done in those situations. And it's an interesting, because it kind of wires your brain for when you do make the jump, and it sort of determines the higher parallel universe that you will jump into. And so that's why the past is there. The past happens imperfectly in many instances, so that you can perfect yourself. And I think the regrets that a lot of people have, and a lot of things that are holding them back emotionally, are past events where they don't feel like they lived up to their expectations of themselves, or they flew off the handle and got angry, or did something very stupid, or made a big mistake. All these things are there. as sort of virtual reality tests, um, as they are there to give us more wisdom, and they are not there to hamper us with regret. And regret is a very Western concept, and it has to do with it's a direct byproduct of an over rationalization of what is going on, of our experience in the world. It's maybe I wouldn't call it an over rationalization, but it's just taking at face value the non-existence of parallel worlds, perhaps. And not that I fault anyone for taking that perspective. It's very difficult to wrap your mind around the parallel world idea, but physics has basically given us predictive models that posit the existence of these parallel worlds, and they're really, quantum physics specifically, there is evidence to suggest that there are different parallel worlds, and every once in a while you're on the ascent, if you are doing it very methodically and you're not overlooking something, you're not self-justifying, you have to understand that when you do make a mistake, there's no problem to acknowledge it. You don't have to sit there and try to rationalize why that thing that you know was wrong was right. And a lot of people are doing that, and it takes a lot of mental energy that you don't need to expend. Okay, what you do is you pledge to yourself that you will move into the future, spreading as much positivity, and that you are hoping that memory will no longer exist because the past will change, at least on your plane. So just, I know this is kind of a paradoxical thought, but it's something to really understand, because most people are wandering around just sort of kind of caught up in a past event that has traumatized them, or where they believe they may have not acted correctly, and there's a lot of regret. And I believe in Scientology these were called engrams, and they referred to scars kind of in your psyche of traumatic events. And you have to understand that these traumatic events are not permanencies. They are they could be temporary, very well. And you know, I even brought this into the realm of death. When a loved one dies, they're not necessarily going to be dead tomorrow, depending upon how you act today, which is a very odd concept. And of course, all your memories adjust accordingly, and they never died in that parallel universe. And you were in the parallel universe where they did die yesterday, and you don't remember that. So this is a very interesting understanding, and I hope that you can relay it to people as best you can, because it's important. Otherwise, people get stuck in their current parallel universe, and they just seek to entertain themselves, almost as people do in prison. Because if you're not ascending into higher parallel universes, you are in prison. You have imprisoned yourself on one level of existence, and it's there's, of course, always a part of you that will ascend, but you don't want to wait for the death, the physical death, or at least the one on this plane, for that to happen. You want to be pursuing it as you live. And, you know, we've already talked about how you don't have to die in this plane or in any other physically, but that I won't get into. But we will talk later. This is Lectures of Fallen Wisdom, and my name is Logan Wade Sykes the Sixth. So thanks again for listening. We have a caller on the line, apparently. Who's this? Hello? Like a Skype caller. I guess they're gone now.